Welcome back. Now, one of the things we don't talk much about on Tech Talk is politics. You know, because we're a tech show and all. But with the 2012 election coming up and with so many candidates offering so many positions on a wide range of issues, one of the things no one seems to be talking about is internet freedom and cybersecurity. So today we're introducing a new segment on the show to keep you up to date with the latest technological happenings of the 2012 election, AmeriTech 2012. Tonight's installment, with liberty and justice for LOL. Recently, the Associated Press reported that the CIA's Open Source Center has been monitoring millions of tweets and Facebook updates to, quote, give the White House a daily snapshot of the world. They do this in order to gather everything from public opinion to the moon in a certain region of the world that looks like it's on the verge of revolution. These CIA analysts have a nickname, Ninja Librarians. Can you imagine how quiet they would be? OSC Director Doug Nakeen told the AP that he thinks the next generation of social media will be closed loop so that people will be able to communicate only within their circles, and for the government to monitor possible terrorist cells using these technologies, it may have to bring in other groups like the NSA to amp up the monitoring. We have so far had 3 presidents governing in the age of the 21st century. Clinton for less than a month, but whatever, I'm counting 2000. And whether it happens next year or 5 years down the road, we will have a new president dealing with issues of cybersecurity and internet freedom. President Obama has taken a more hawkish view of cyber warfare. You may recall documents from the Pentagon detailing how the U.S. government will now treat cyber attacks as acts of terrorism. Not sure if that's the most ideal strategy, but okay then. President Obama and Secretary of State Hillary Clinton have both pushed for the idea of 21st century statecraft, using social diplomacy in the age of technology. However, both have been increasingly hawkish on the issue of cybersecurity and pushing back against hackers. I argued in my Hacktivism series of posts on the Tech Talk blog this past summer that despite many claims that hackers are dangerous when it comes to the preservation of internet freedom, hackers, in some cases, can be more dedicated to web freedom than many governments are. The United Nations labels internet freedom as a human right, but many governments, including some democratic ones, have instituted blocks on the internet that have basically restricted access to it. Now, obviously, the United States has always valued internet freedom and would never, ever do anything to infringe on it. But according to the Wall Street Journal, technology from a California-based company is being used to block the internet in Syria. That's right, Blue Coast Systems Inc. sent their web filtering service to Dubai under the belief they would go to the Iraqi government, but the packages took a little side trip to Syria, which could not have directly received the technology because of strict U.S. trade embargoes. The company found out Syria was using their technology to block the internet when automatic updates were sent back to the company. We know where President Obama stands on cybersecurity. A few weeks ago, the president issued an order calling for new government cybersecurity standards because of problems with leaks like Bradley Manning in the WikiLeaks case. According to The Hill, the order sets up a task force to, quote, identify people in the U.S. government who might disclose classified information and a new office to upgrade security protections. And top White House officials have been lobbying members of Congress to get a strong cybersecurity bill passed this year. Which brings us back to the 2012 Republican contenders for the presidency. Many of them have made freedom and individual liberty one of the core pillars of their candidacies, so one would expect them to have a detailed plan for governance as it pertains to the internet in the 21st century. But as of today, when you examine the issues pages for each candidate, all but one of them don't list the internet or cybersecurity as something important enough to address in the era we live in. All the candidates acknowledge the mass effects of technological globalization to some degree. Newt Gingrich brands himself as a 21st century candidate and uses the phrase multiple times, win the future, the one President Obama used in his State of the Union address in January. Of course, every single candidate boasts how much they get those newfangled social networking thingies all the kids are using nowadays, but none of them have anything more than I know what the internet is on their official websites. Save for one candidate. You might not have heard of former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson because, one, he's not doing well in the polls, and two, The networks aren't letting him participate in the debates because he's not doing well in the polls. But Johnson is the only candidate who appears to understand that internet freedom is an important issue for this generation of voters. On his website, Johnson lists internet and technology as its own category under issues and calls for zero internet regulation, zero internet taxation, and keeping the internet free and safe. Johnson speaks out against net neutrality and proposed internet kill switch legislation, and calls for the FCC to stop creating rules that regulate content on the internet. Now, whether you agree or disagree with what Johnson is saying, at least he's the only candidate to take these issues on in such a direct and open way. Now, in fairness, Mitt Romney's website does feature a speech he gave on U.S. foreign policy in October, and Romney declared in the speech he would, quote, order the formulation of a national cybersecurity strategy to deter and defend against the growing threats of militarized cyber attacks, terrorism, and cyber espionage. But this is Romney. He'll probably flip-flop on that next month. But other than Johnson, none of the candidates have really explained what their cybersecurity strategy is. How is this even possible? We've had report after report of widespread hacks this year. We're filming this on November 5th. Again, a significant day in the anonymous movement. Banks have been hacked, securities firms have been hacked, government websites have been taken down by DDoS attacks, and the list goes on. How does anyone running to be the leader of the free world see all these things in the news and not realize they're going to need to lay out a cybersecurity policy for the future? Some of the candidates have made comments giving small indications of what their potential cybersecurity policies would be. Former U.S. Ambassador to China Jon Huntsman said in August he believes cyber attacks are acts of war, saying, quote, "This is the new war field cyber intrusion is. What we need in this country is to use this issue as not only an economic development tool, but also a national security tool. We need early warning capabilities, and we need safeguards, and we need countermeasures. Not only have government institutions been hacked into, but private individuals have been hacked too. Listen, this is also part of a dialogue that has not taken place with the Chinese. We need a strategic dialogue at the highest levels between the U.S. and China. That is not happening. As far as you can see into the 21st century, we are going to have to deal with the Chinese. Damn Chinese." All of the Republicans running for president have made freedom and deregulation hallmarks of their campaigns. But if you want to know exactly how seriously these candidates take cybersecurity and internet freedom, all you need to do is take a look at each candidate's stance on the E-PARASITE Act. What is the E-PARASITE Act? Well, first of all, the title is short for the Enforcing and Protecting American Rights Against Sites Intent on Theft and Exploitation Act. Protecting American rights. That's how you know this is full of shit. It takes a more hardline view of copyright infringement than its predecessor in Congress, the PROTECTIP Act. Whereas the PROTECTIP Act, the Senate version, had limits on which sites would be targeted, lobbying by the copyright industries has expanded the reach of the potential law. According to CNET, search engines can be forced to cut ties with parasitic websites, and sites like YouTube could potentially be prosecuted for streaming copyrighted works. Hollywood has been pushing for harsher copyright laws for years now, and a few weeks ago, through the Freedom of Information Act, we learned that top Obama administration officials, including our own copyright czar, have been in close contact with Hollywood lobbyists working on blocking access to certain users who have been, in their view, taking advantage of sites that are stealing content. If you want to know how serious each of these candidates are about freedom and government regulation, see if they support the E-PARASITE Act. The White House petition, as you'll recall from our previous segment, to stop the E-PARASITE Act has over 9,000 signatures as of today. But it's not like Obama's going to come out and oppose it or anything. In fact, a few weeks ago, Hillary Clinton actually defended the act, saying defending intellectual property will not in any way infringe on people's web freedoms. To quote our Secretary of State, "There is no contradiction between intellectual property rights protection and enforcement of expression on the internet." So we know where this president stands. But what about his rivals? The people who want government to be a reduced force in our lives. Are they willing to be intellectually consistent when it comes to internet freedom? Or are they ultimately going to side with Hollywood lobbyists? Only time will tell. Also money. Actually, pretty much mostly money. Well, that's it for this first installment of AmeriTech 2012. When we come back, Doug will demo ways to find your Mac and how to secure your hard drive. Stick around.